Hey, before we get to today's great episode, wanted to let you know of a new exciting thing going on for the Lounge. For the first time since we started this podcast, the Lounge has entered into a partnership with a company that is aligned in how we think. Completely stop gambling. So Betttr is giving away 200 free subscriptions for life to the first 200 users from this podcast. Download Betttr, find the link in the show notes, or searching Betttr in your app store. So it's Betttr, BETTR, quit gambling. Search for that on the App Store or click into the link in the podcast show notes. So I'll see you on Betttr. And now to today's episode. Welcome into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. I'm Eric, and I'm a compulsive gambler.
And I'm Alyssa, and I'm also a compulsive gambler.
And we are rolling in recovery.
Yes, we are.
All right. Welcome to experience number 4. So before we get to the amazing episode tonight, let's just recap last week. Sebastian was on. You got a little bit close. That was a tough one. Yeah. So how did you feel about it?
Literally a mixed bag of emotions, for real, because I cried a little bit. I was happy at times. I reminisced a little bit. I was like, why did you say that? But overall, in the end, what I got out of it was the fact that Sebastian finally said that he doesn't resent me anymore for bringing him into the gambling world. And that's something that I needed to hear, and I hadn't heard in the last 5 years. That's
awesome. Probably an unintended happy consequence.
Absolutely.
Of doing the podcast. Yeah. So I have to say something too, because after listening to your interview of Sebastian and how kind of close and loving it got, I was listening back again to the episode we did with Edgardo. And when I came in and interviewed him, I was not so loving and nice. You know, I think it was really, really serious for the right reasons. But I just want to, say that I love Edgardo so much.
I know.
And
he loves you so much.
I know that he's like 0.0001% of people that would stand by and go through this process with the problem gambler, especially the amount of pain and destruction I caused him over all these years. So I want to just publicly say on the podcast, because I didn't really properly say it in that episode, that Edgardo, I love you so much, and I could not be doing any of this without your love and support. Okay, now we're going to go into tonight's episode, experience number 4. And when Alyssa and I were talking about who was going to be our first guest, I know that we kind of both looked at each other kind of with that smiling nod, and we're like, it's Julia. So when we come back into the Gambling Recovery Lounge, we are going to welcome in Julia, and we're going to have an amazing experience tonight. Everybody, please join us back in a minute on the Gambling Recovery Lounge. Welcome back into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. Alyssa, how excited are we right now to do this tonight?
I am so excited. We have our guest in the studio. She has arrived. She is here. She's looking beautiful and a little terrified. Hi,
That's
friend.
what it's all about. We're experiencing the experience together. Julia, welcome into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're so happy to have you here.
What an honor. I mean, this is amazing what you guys are starting, and I'm happy to be in a recovery lounge. What can I say? Anywhere near recovery, I'm happy to be. I'm excited. I'm a little bit nervous. Yeah.
Good. Okay, cool. Well,
does the lounge look like what you thought it would look like?
It's pretty dope in here. It's pretty cool. We got neon, we got lights, we've got candles, we've got velveteen. I mean,
we're rolling in
it's
the lounge.
pretty loungy.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so let's start with like the one question we kind of always start with about, when was the last time you made a bet?
Last time I made a bet was August 30th of 2021.
August 30th. Okay, so over 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Okay. Let's start back at the beginning for you. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood and kind of your experiences growing up, and maybe where things started to take a turn in your life emotionally where maybe not so great things happen for you?
Ooh, we're just going to dive on in. Yeah, well, I'm born and raised in Southern California. I grew up in an unincorporated part of Whittier. I like to give that for some street cred, you know. We were from the south side of Whittier next to Pico Rivera, so I like to give that little street cred. I was very close to my father, and he was a musician, and my mother was a music teacher. And it was me and 3 brothers. And when I was about 8 years old, Dad left. And that was pretty pivotal for me. I mean, for all of us, really. You know, it destroys the family system. But for me, he was my ally in the family. He was my best friend. So I remember one of my first memories is just watching him load up his car with all of the records that we used to play together. I'm like, where are you going with that Beatles record? Where are you going with the Fifth Dimension? Like, you know, I didn't understand what was happening. And then he was a very big fish in our town. He was a very big fish, and he didn't move out of the town. He moved like up the street.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So he was very prominent in the city where I grew up.
So he had to stay in the
So
city.
he had to stay. And so he didn't go far. So he moved up the street and he married this young new woman, and they had 2 new kids. So he basically we grew up in a parallel kind of universe. We broken home, single mom, economically not doing very well, and we kind of watched him with this new family, white picket fence, better cars, better house, in the same community. So it was very, right away, it was like, you speak about that feeling of feeling less than. It was built in from very young age. Like, you are a reject was the messaging for me. And it's not, this is not about blame. This is just trying to understand who I've become as an addict, as a person, as just a human being, and my, you know, how I coped. And, you know, addiction runs through families, right? It's a family disease. We have alcoholism. We have other issues. So where it starts, it's always like that chicken and egg thing. Like, because I know a lot of people in the program who don't have, you know, traumatic family history or had a beautiful early childhood, no issues, and they can still be an addict. It's not, it doesn't mean much. But for me, it's important to understand the coping, what I saw, you know, how people coped with the divorce, and just my own proclivities to addiction, and then how I cope, what I turn to cope. So as a very young child, I mean, we're talking nursery school, kindergarten, I already had an obsession with food and keeping secrets, right? Like, cut to GA, like, I learned so much about my past from this particular program. Somehow I was able to tie so much from my early childhood, like that obsession and the secrets, the hiding. Like, when you're a kid, you know, they just see a little fat kid. They don't know. They don't know that you're like obsessing about a substance or a sugar or whatever, or you're hiding food on your, like, the behaviors that you already learned to be secretive about. Like,
well, and that's not what, like, kids that are that young should be doing. Like, they, you know, they shouldn't be stressed out and feeling like they have to keep secrets. They should be having fun.
Right.
So that's extra painful, I imagine.
And confusing, because it's, you know, and I don't want to paint a picture of this, that it was all bad. You know, I got some very beautiful things from my parents, music being the most, you know, the predominant thing. And I had some fun times with my brothers when we were very little, but unfortunately when your dad leaves and he's the center of the universe, we all turned on each other. And mom had to work, and she was gone. My poor mom had to work like 3-4 jobs. So I'm in the home with 3 brothers, angry brothers. It wasn't great. And, you know, I hesitate to say too much, because another thing I'm learning in these programs is like laying blame, right? Laying blame. And for years I acted out I blame my dad, I blame my brothers, I blame the boys down the street, the boys at school, blame. And it's true. There's things that happen that shouldn't have happened. There's neglect that happened that shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have had to raise my dad's children, and being introduced as the babysitter, that shouldn't happen. I shouldn't have my dad and his wife drop me off at the house where things are happening, and they live a mile away and could have probably protected me better.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You babysat your dad's?
Oh yeah, right when they were his new wife.
Well, I guess they were your step siblings.
Took my, it really takes a fourth step to change all the resentment and pain that I have about that, because that was, talk about, that's really the core of a lot of how I regarded myself and how I thought of myself, was like, you are not good enough to be your dad's daughter. You're good enough to be the help. Yeah.
Very powerful.
So before gambling starts for you, you turn to another substance to
Yes.
try to numb you from all this pain. Can you talk about that situation?
Sure. So right around 12, 13, was at a sleepover with the girls, in junior high. And we raided their parents' liquor cabinet. And the first sip, that was it for me. That was suddenly everything was peaceful. All of the chatter in my head, all of the pain in my heart, everything quieted. And it was the most blissful escape, and became a big part of my life for the next, until I was 35. So is that 20 years? 20. Oh, yeah, about 24 years. I mean, that was a magical coping mechanism. When you're a teenager, a lot of people are drinking, but I was always the one, there's always one in the group where people are like, is she still out there smoking? Is she still drinking over there? How many drinks does she have? Like, I was that friend. Is she still eating? Like, I'm the one who did everything to the nth degree. And it was never enough. And if we did party, well, I had my little pre-party before I went to your party, and then I had an after party. So I was that friend. And I have to say I was very lucky, because I was in some situations, this freaking program in the when you start going to recovery and hearing about higher power, and you're like, come on, like, no one wants to hear about God right now. I don't have the time for this. I don't subscribe to this stuff. But when you become, when you go through that process of becoming willing and hearing from all of you guys that have gone before, and when you start developing letting your guard down, opening your mind to all that, you look back and you go, oh, okay. Something was kind of protecting me, because I was on freeways. I was in strange people's homes. I was in situations that were very dangerous. How am I sitting here? I'm about to turn 53 in a couple weeks. Like, how am I sitting here before you, like...
Thriving, by the way. I mean, we're going to get through your whole story, but I mean, safe to say now, you're the happiest you've ever been in your life, yeah?
I'm trying not to cry. I'm sitting here with you two, two people that when I first came to GA, learned so much from, got so much hope from, and guidance and advice. And as we're sitting here now, and 2.5 years into my recovery, so I've known you that length of time, it is very emotional, and I don't want to start crying yet. We just started. But there's so much that I want to say. We might have to do a 4-hour podcast, because
a two-parter.
Because I did go to AA, I did get sober, blah blah. No, I didn't mean blah blah blah, but I meant that it was not until coming to GA that things crystallized. So I've said to people, it took me a whole other program to figure out really what this thing is, what all of this is, the steps and all of this language that I didn't like hearing everybody talk like sheep. When I was in AA, I was such a cynical, I'm smarter than all of you, and you people sound like, I was such a cynic, but I was just in so much pain, and And I didn't want to be in a church. I didn't want to know who your God was. And just help me stop drinking, okay? Because I'm really sick. and that's all I wanted was, I didn't know that there was this whole other world that opens up to you when you.
And we're spending time on this, and everyone I think out there is going, let's talk about the gambling, because that's why all of you are tuning into this podcast. But we also know in recovery that the gambling addiction is far more tied to our emotional and mental issues before it really becomes anything really to do with money, or even later, even in the addiction, really about money as opposed to emotional escape. And so I think it's always important to tell the whole story of how somebody gets to the point of gambling addiction. And you're hearing Julia start to tell that story of how she led up to what would become a gambling addiction. So it starts with, obviously, with alcohol. You're in recovery in AA. That goes on for years. What other things along the way, and we're going to get to the gambling, what other things in your life became obsessively problematic for you that you're willing to share?
You mean besides the alcohol?
Besides the alcohol.
And the eating and the smoking and the destruction of my one normal relationship that I've ever had. The most beautiful human being that I have yet to, I know that there will be others, but the one that got away, so to speak, the most beautiful person that he just watched me destroy myself. And I was a complete absent, horrible person, and just so locked in my own self-destruction that anyway.
What was his name?
His name was Robert.
And what happened?
Dude, where's the Kleenex?
Get this woman a tissue.
Well, again, listen, the point about this story is, again, when you develop an idea of what this higher power thing is, and you look back, and I'm looking back to 1994 when he came into my life, and I had been so abused, so teased by all the men that I had known in my life at that point. Well, most of them. There might have been an exception, but people used to come in my room and knock my shit over. It was just, I didn't want any part of them. And then he came out of the sky, and he was gentle and kind, smart, handsome, tall. He could play Chopin on the piano and then go and fix my car.
Oh, my God.
And my family loved, and I was like, I don't have time for whatever this is. Not only that, I didn't know how to accept it. I didn't know how, he's saying, I love you. I did not know how to accept that. I didn't love me, so you can't love me. Plus, if you do love me, you're just going to leave. And it was just a kind of a tragedy of where I was at the time. But again, back to the higher power thing, okay? So that person was dropped into my life for a reason. And as much as it hurts that he's remarried and has like 100 kids or something, there was a reason that he came along. But hey, not all men that you meet are going to be cruel or take their pain out on you. Because I love my brothers, and they were in a lot of pain. They were in a lot of pain, and they didn't know what to do with it. And I was just there, you know? And I forgive them and I love them. But I'm not willing to go find some other person that's going to ever talk to me a certain way or put their hands on me or ruin my stuff or whatever, you know. So anyway, Robert came by for a reason. I know that now. And I don't cry as much. It's like, oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that gift, because I think I might be better equipped now if that another gift comes along my path. I might be better equipped to receive it.
Wow, Julia, thank you so much. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back in the Gambling Recovery Lounge and continuing this very powerful story with Julia. Welcome back into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. So we're going to continue our wonderful story with Julia. So Julia, thank you for answering all of those questions and being so open and vulnerable. It's always important to tell the whole story. It's never just about gambling. There's always a backstory to how something happens. But we are now going to lead into the gambling. So if you could take our audience back to what do you remember about your first exposure to gambling?
Okay. I had a family that I kind of glommed onto in high school. They became sort of my adopted family. And that their father used to love the horse track. And my best friend, who was the daughter, that was just something Dad did. Like, he came home in a good mood. That meant track did well. Came home in a bad mood. Don't talk to Dad. And I was like, what's that all about? And then there were times that they'd go to Vegas together and they'd invite me because I was like their little adopted daughter. And so I remember going to Vegas with them as a family, being in a hotel room and going to circus, and why we had buckets, I don't know why. And we'd go to these machines and clink, 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 clink. And then we'd come back to the hotel room and dump our buckets onto the bed. Like, these are things I remember after going through GA. Like, oh, my story, there were little glimmers of things before. So there is a comfortable kind of memory. Like, that was my adoptive family. And going to Vegas was sort of what they did. That was their vacation. And I do remember the cling, cling, cling and the excitement of dumping out that bucket onto the bed and kind of running your fingers through all the coins.
Like, about how old were you at that time?
15.
Okay. I'm kind of remembering Circus myself, and like all those games that you play, like in the arcades and stuff, but all the gambling is going on around you as
it's
well.
Almost like they are grooming the kids, because you walk in, even though it's a quote arcade, right, they are grooming you because you're already.
Well, they give you tickets to win, so you can buy a prize with your tickets.
Yeah.
It is kind of a grooming.
Yeah.
And luckily, those friends of mine, they did not become addicts. I mean, my friend still likes to go to the casino, but very recreationally. She is not an addict. And she feels terrible now because she sees me, she doesn't know she didn't watch the full destruction, but she saw the end, and she knows that I'm very heavily involved in recovery. And she still feels bad, and I have to assure her, if it hadn't have been you exposed, I still would have found it. I still would have found something. It's just been interesting how that.
Okay. So how did it kind of evolve from that circus stuff into actually gambling?
Good question. Because I got sober in 2007 from alcohol. I went into a recovery center, which we will get back to another sort of godshot thing with that place. But when you're in when you're in a rehab, you have your classes and sessions during the day, and then at night you have the meeting. People come, and it's a community AA meeting every night. So I was very tightly involved for 3 years in this AA meeting in Glendale. Strangely enough, I do not live in Glendale, but all these things happen in this area, right? And right around 3 years, something happened. I got a resentment, and I drifted away from that fellowship. And I was like, fuck y'all, fuck AA, fuck your higher power, fuck your blue book, fuck all this. And I went off on my merry way back to being angry little Julia. Although I did maintain a relationship with one of my sober sisters, and she and I were like, fuck you, and we kind of bonded over that, and we kind of, quote, did our own thing. I didn't start drinking again. We still talked recovery, and we would go to a meeting over here and a meeting over there and try to, all the cool ones. Like, where's all the musicians? Let's go to the one in Hollywood with all the musicians, and but I was not in recovery anymore. I was angry again, and I was out resent. The worst, oh my God, the most painful resentment of any is when your resentment is against your fellows. Like your fellowship, like my resentment against the AA and my sponsor there.
Oh yeah.
That was a can I say mind fuck? That was like a mind and soul, very confusing, very like turn yourself inside out, bad. So
did you ever have, when you were like in that deepest pit of that resentment, were you close at any point to drinking?
No, because I had my old standby, which was food. So I was like, I'm sober. I carried that badge. Like, I'm good. But I'm over here being angry, and I'm over here stuffing myself and acting out in all these other ways. So it was just like a prime landscape for whatever was going to come next. And it happened that my dad, again, not an addict, but a senior citizen at this point, retired, liked to go play the slots. And I was starting to reconnect with him because his other wife had left and he was out there all alone living in the desert. And I'm like, I'm going to go reconnect with my dad. And actually, I'm making a joke, but it was a very actually precious time to be able to do that before he died. But he was the one that took me to San Manuel. And I was just tagging along with him. He had a big concert and he's like, well, let's go have a steak and let's swing by this place and we'll have a steak. And he was kind of showing me how he blows off steam after a big concert. And he took me to San Manuel and I was like, this is smoky and gross. Like, what are we doing here? And we walked to the back of the casino and it was just some little room with some slot machines. And he gave me, I forget what it was, maybe a 20 or $40. And we sat down and he just started, playing his little dollar machine. And I was just kind of doing as he did. I sat on the end cap seat at some big, by the way, someone mentioned about video games. I mean, I'd had a predilection for video. I mean, I could spend days playing my ex-boyfriend's video. Like, he'd go to work and I'd just zone out. So put me in front of a slot machine. It was like, ooh, horsies and unicorns and
you were how old music. At this point when this happened with your dad the first time? About
38.
And you had never gambled to that point?
I mean, just that little bit in Vegas. And then before Chumash was built, my best friend had started college up there by Santa Barbara. And she took me when it was still a tent. And I remember going and I don't remember, first of all, I didn't have any, I was sort of going with her. I don't remember anything significant about it except that, ooh, this is really fun. But it was, those machines were not this kind of what they are now. And at this time with my dad, it was like, those machines are, it was like, to me, it was like a video game. It was like this bright, shiny, there were characters, there was music. I got so sucked into the music to where I would put more money in so that I could hear the end of a song. Like, they really know what they're doing. Like the I have to put it in so I can hear the cadence of this freaking song. Or the bonus had this beautiful, like, there was this one machine, it was like Chinese themed, and when you'd get to the bonus, it would be this beautiful, like, some Chinese instrument, and it was like so relaxing. I'm like, well, I gotta get to that bonus, and I just keep putting money in so I can get to that bonus. So they were appealing to every single sense that I had. Every single sense. So I remember this night so clearly because it was, it's a new environment. I'm watching my dad hit this thing. I'm kind of bouncing around the machines going, this is so dumb. Like, none of these machines are paying anything. And then I ended up back next to my dad and I was kind of angrily like, this is so stupid. Hitting that button, nothing's paying. And then the machine stopped. And I remember like a siren started and I was like, why isn't this button doing anything?
Who broke my machine?
I honestly had no idea what was going on. And then I saw my dad kind of swing over and look like, and I'm like, what did I do? And people started kind of surrounding me and he's like, you got a jackpot. I said, what? Like, I didn't understand. Like, to me, it just stopped working and people were suddenly around me and the machine started doing its thing. And I couldn't even tell what was happening. And my dad was getting irritated and other people were like rubbing my back saying, you're good luck. And I see, and he's pointing on the machine. He's like, see, you won $4,000. I said, huh? And so it went from me being super irritated to suddenly, I am a god. And people are like, they can't wait. I'm like Buddha or something. They want to rub my belly, and they're all these people are smiling at me, and staff is smiling and saying, "Congratulations, we'll be right back." And I'm like, "What is going?" Like the little neglected middle child was like getting so fed, so much attention, so much adulation, except from my dad because his machine wasn't paying. but I remember like all this good sensation in my body, like, oh my God, everybody loves me. And then my dad was kind of coaching me, like, put your hand out, get your ID ready. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And all these staff members are coming up, and he's like, put your hand out. And I have my ID, and I'm like, what is happening? Am I getting arrested? Like, what? And they start putting cold hard cash into my hand, one bill after the other. And I'm like, wow.
Like $100 bills?
$100 bills. This is like Disneyland for adults. And they're smiling at me. Congratulations. And I'm like, wow, what is happening? And he's like, make sure you tip them. He's like pissed off. He's like, make sure you tip them. I tip them. And then everybody's happy and celebrating. And he's like, let's go upstairs and have a steak. I'm like, okay, that's the angriest steak offer I've ever had, but let's go sell it. Like he did want to celebrate too. And so it was an unbelievable night of like affirmation, celebration, because why? But for me, for as much pain as I was in, I was like, this feels so good. I want more. I want it all the time. So we had that night, and I remember coming home, and it's funny that you have this tissue that's $100 bills, because I spent the next day and a half just fanning out my money. And I have a picture. I found a picture, and it's so sad because it's like that was the start. That was the beginning of the obsession. Yeah. That was the beginning of the chase. And, and then it just got really, really sad because that's when the lying started. It was like, oh, Dad, I'll come out on Sunday. Do you need help? Do you need any help? I'll come out and, take your trash barrels out and whatever. You need me to run an errand? And I knew all the time. I knew that the next morning meant a trip to the casino because that was his routine. Trip to Morongo for an hour and a half. And then we'd break for breakfast, play another half an hour, and then go back to his house. And then I'd say, well, Dad, I got to go. I have a meeting. I have to work. I have homework, whatever excuse. And I would go back to Morongo. And then I would play. Then I could play. Because that whole previous time was just an act. It was like, I'm like my dad. I'm not an addict. We're just playing and we're, shooting the shit. And this one's hot today and this one's not. And I'm going to go to the gift shop. And total bullshit. Pardon my language. I'm so sorry. But it was a lie. It was such a lie. And all the while, I can't wait to drop my dad off so that I could go and really do what I needed to do, which was just zone out for hours and disappear. Essentially, I wanted to disappear. My drive was more escape than the money. But of course, it became the money because then I needed money to be able to do the escape. And then it got caught into this cycle. But it was like, what a blissful escape. Like, there was music, my attachment to even the music. I'd have to find the machines that had the prettiest music and always find the chair that there was no people around me.
I thought you were going to say that there was no pee on.
Well, there were some of those casinos. Ooh. But you know what? You know what's so sad? It goes from like, oh, this luxurious experience at the casino where you're treated like, the valet parking. Oh my God, I never have valet parking. And suddenly I have free valet parking. To let me find the scummiest, sleaziest, most disgusting casino because that's how I feel on the inside. And this is what I deserve. With the 3 a.m. tweakers running around. I love remembering me. Cut to me, my bleary eye. I've been in the casino like 2 days. It's 3:34 in the morning, and I'm judging the tweakers.
I know.
I'm sitting at my disgusting machine, I haven't eaten, I haven't slept, I haven't showered, and I'm judging them.
Yeah.
Guess what? I am them. And at the same time, I'm pitying them. Like, how sad that they're here checking the machines for the tickets to see if anybody left a ticket.
It's just that reminder of no matter what kind of gambling we did, it all goes back to the same basic issue of a total inability to emotionally process our feelings. Mm-hmm. Alyssa, I got to pass it off to you because I know you totally relate to Julia as a slot machine player. I related deeply in my own way emotionally, but you had to be processing some things as well as she was talking about that progression of her slot machine play. So how did you feel, or what do you want to ask Julia?
So the first thing that really stuck out for me was when you were talking about the tweakers and how you would judge them. And then there you are still, 2 days later sitting in no shower. And I was that person too. And I guess I never really thought of it from that perspective because, I didn't think there was anything wrong with what I was doing, even though it was, like you said, the exact same thing that they were doing. So that really stuck out to me. And then the other thing that really stuck out to me was what Eric was saying in response to you saying you wanted to disappear. Because for me, that wasn't actually a reason I gambled. I don't think I was trying to disappear. But just the whole idea of the slot machine and how it mesmerized us and took us to another place. I didn't want to disappear, but I wanted to forget. I wanted to forget that I just had that I just got sick and had a brain aneurysm and my whole life turned upside down. And when I thought I couldn't tie my shoe anymore, I could push a button. And that's really sad. I mean, it's really sad. But I relate so much to the pain that we heard from you and your story. Was the progression of the gambling parallel to the progression of pain? So did you start low gambling, placing low bets, and then progressively get higher and higher? And then with that became more and more pain? Or were you just flat out balls in, straight shooter, going for it?
That is a great question because I definitely started a 40-cent better on the, I never really made a lot of money, so I started very conservatively. And, a slot machine, now there's the old school slot machines, which I think you played, that had either $1, $2, $3, but then there's the penny slots, which can start as low as 10 cents, 5 cents. You can do a 5-cent bet, but then they go deceptively. You can also bet $35 on that same machine. If you don't know how to do math, which a lot of us don't.
Or you hit the max button by accident.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a rude awakening.
One penny machine, you can do $35.
Oh, yes.
Somehow.
Oh, yes.
Somehow.
They have 2 panels. They have 2 rows. So there's the multiplier row at the top. So the bottom looks like, 5 cents. But on the top, it says 1, 5, 10. They're multiplications of the bottom number. So if you, and we've done this before, I'm sure, Alyssa, you accidentally hit that max bet and you're going, where's my money? One spin and it's all gone.
You're like, wait, no.
Where's the refund button?
Yeah.
Nobody,
my machine went tilt.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started a 40-cent, and I remember looking to the left and to the right of me at the other players going, wow, maybe someday I could do the 80-cent bet. And so it slowly went from, I'm a 40-cent player, la, 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 this is so fun, to I am, either 17, 50, whatever unfathomable amount. And the way that the machines are now, they're so highly advanced that there's no button anymore. It's a panel. It's like on a Mac, everything is like a touch screen. There's no physical button. So imagine if you put your fingertip on your iPhone, how fast can you type or text you are hitting 1750. So I could hit that max button. I type 90 words a minute. I could hit that button.
Yeah.
Hundreds of dollars in 10 minutes.
Thousands.
10 minutes. Yeah.
Thousands of dollars.
And there was something so satisfying about that. It's so messed up to think about it, because it was so satisfying to be so reckless and so fast and so just don't interrupt me. Don't drink, ladies. Don't talk to me. Just leave me alone to do this thing I have to do.
An interesting question. When you talk about this extreme, like, zoning into something, you're zoning out, but you're also zoning in. Can you remember anything before this in your life where you were so focused and concentrated on something so passionately before this became your reality at the slot machine?
Music, singing, eating, drinking. Are you getting at another behavioral, like a maladaptive behavior? Are you talking about something in life that I was drawn to as passionately in a positive way?
I think it could be either. I think it's really,
yeah.
How does it hit you when you hear that question?
It breaks my fucking heart, because the little girl loved music. Drawn to the radio, drawn to the piano, drawn to the bands, drawn to the choir, drawn to my dad, drawn to the world. That, by the way, it's also, I think, another kind of escape, but it's a living escape. You're alive and you're feeling all your cells, and it's a positive escape. But that was the trajectory I was headed I think at my inception, the start of Julia. That was the world that I wanted to be in. And now I'm getting to revisit and reacquaint myself with.
Yeah, let's put a peg in that, because we're going to come back to that in the recovery portion. Mm-hmm. But I think, it's important, to paint the whole picture of what gets you to that ultimate place of, we'll get to the rock bottom here soon. So your dad passes away. What year was that?
2018.
And then what happened after that relative to your gambling?
Let me preface this by saying, when you're a gambling addict, you have the most despicable thoughts, sometimes deeds, but certainly thoughts. And I'm going to tell you, and I think it's clear how much I loved my dad. I worshiped my dad. Before he died, this is despicable, but this is the reality of where our what happens to our souls when we're in this grip, right? Part of me wanted that inheritance money more than I wanted my dad around. That's the truth. That is a painful, disgusting truth that I'm kind of sharing with this space, because that's not the real Julia. That's not my heart. That's not the real me. By the way, all that money's gone. All that money's gone. But I wanted it so bad. So my dad died in 2018. I had the pleasure of really essentially I was the one who drove him to the ER. I got to be with him, not the night he died, but he knew that I loved him and I forgave him. And anyway, so he passes away. I am chomping at the bit. Like, my brother's in charge of the estate, and I'm like, when's the check coming? Give me the check. And we're getting all these emails, and my brother's he's very, shall we say, professional. Very, very, cross every T, dot every I. He knows how badly I wanted that check. So he kind of took his time. I knew in my heart I was a compulsive gambler. I didn't do anything about it. I just kind of put that away somewhere. And I said, okay, I got this big check. So Julia, go to the bank. Don't fuck it up. No, I had a plan, right? So here's this check. Now, because you know you're a compulsive gambler, I didn't know those terms. Because you know you're going to go take this all to the casinos, go split it in half. I had a plan. Split it in half. Lock the other half into some CDs. I got really crafty. I went to the bank and I thought I was a big shot. Talk about big shot. I went to the other side of the bank, not the teller side, but the other side. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to talk to this guy. And I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm like, hi, I have this thing. And could you, I was trying, that was kind of a first call for help. That was a kind of a first cry for help. Like, could you please lock this, keep this from me? Because I'm going to blow it. So I was very crafty. I was like, okay, yeah, could you put that in that much in a CD and that much in this other account, and then give me this much cash? And then, I'm very smart, right? I'm like, then I went to a different bank and I was like, okay, will you take this amount, put that in a CD, 6 month, 10, whatever, 12 month. Yeah, keep it away from me. Keep it away from me. And then I kept myself a nice little stack that I got to play with for a few weeks. Well, no, not a few weeks, right? It's like one night, 2 nights, tops. So I didn't know that you could. I thought a CD was like Fort Knox, like they would like put it away and then you can't get back in. I was hoping that was true. Like, honestly, hold it, keep it. That's all the money I'll ever have in my life. Did you know you could get your money like in a minute? Like on a cell phone in the middle of the night at Pechanga Casino at 3 a.m, you can get that money. The casinos are very generous about helping you get access to money that even a bank won't let you get. They have machines, they have phones, they have these little keyboards, they're very helpful. So they help me get my money that I thought I had securely hidden from myself, because I ran out of the stack so fast and I certainly couldn't leave. I can't leave. So I drained every penny out of for me, in my little corner of the world over here, that is the most money I've ever seen. And up until now, I thought I would ever see. I had plans. I started a business. I can fund my own record. I can, whatever. It's gone. It's gone. All of it's gone.
It totally reminds me of me bleeding through my 401k, my entire retirement. And I was making a lot of money for a long time. And none of it mattered. And the only thing that mattered was the next bet at all costs. And it kind of feels like that's kind of where you were mentally. Like all of that went out the window. You just had to have the next bet.
I mean, I would sell things. I sold whatever nice things I had. They're on eBay. They're gone.
Same.
I sold. Do you remember the Cash for Clunkers program?
Oh, you sold your car?
I clunked my clunker and I got a check for like $1,000 just so that I could play. So I had no car for a little while. I did, before I joined GA, I didn't know about bankruptcy. I had a Chapter 7. Racked up so much credit card debt. I used to work at a bank. I became
somebody else.
I was a executive in finance, mortgage banking for years.
Yeah, and I also work in finance.
That's right.
As an accountant, it's not who we are, it's what we did. It's unbelievable to me the amount of people I think we all know in our recovery circles and how successful people got to in their quote-unquote careers in terms of financial earning, and doctors and lawyers and accountants and actors, and like there's no discrimination. And the common denominator is, for all of us that have been afflicted by this disease, regardless of the stature we got to, this disease crippled all of us. It brought all of us to our knees. For those of us that didn't die from it and were actually in recovery. but we all come to that same common denominator of being brought to our knees because we can't fend off the beast until we decide to do something about it.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy too, because in recovery, I think we all can agree that in the rooms that we are in, there are intelligent people. I mean, really intelligent people and really creative people. And I guess it's just funny that, like, we should all have known better. But that's how gross this is.
And it's honestly so tied into the recovery piece and the repair, because I look at you guys and I look at so many of the other people in our fellowship and I'm like, God, they're amazing. Like, I want you to get better. I want you to get better and do what it is that I know you can do. Like, realizing your potential or actualizing what you're really here for. We're not here to self-destruct.
So let's get to the rock bottom, if you will. Typically for all of us, there's that moment of this is the end of the gambling that got us into our recovery, whether that's in your case, as with ours, your first GA meeting. What was the final betting event that ended it for you and drew you into your first meeting? Do you remember?
I remember my last night gambling because, having gone through AA and having been like a food addict, I recognized, I was like, uh-oh, we have another thing. I recognized that months prior, but I wouldn't take myself to a meeting. I was like, uh-oh. I would just not want to go to the casino and find myself driving there. It's not like a linear kind of thing, because I knew I had a problem a couple months before I went to GA. I was like, oh boy, Julia, here we are again. I'm like, la 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 la, don't worry, it'll all work out. It'll all work out. But that last night, it was quite literally, I sold my car. I'd sold everything of value. I had depleted all of the accounts. There was no more money. It was 3 or 4 in the morning at Pachanga, and I'm in the lobby considering doing things that I never in my life would have ever considered doing.
Suicide?
For money. No, not suicide. Doing things to people for money. To get money. I needed money. I did not want to stop playing. I had nothing to sell but me. I had nothing.
And as a woman, I think that's like really probably the craziest.
That's what did it. The minute I started thinking in and we know people in this program that took those routes. I don't judge them. I know what it feels like. But that was my bottom. I could not. My grandmother somewhere, that's not what I would have wanted her to know about me. Anyway, I don't know. That was a shred of self-respect that came out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from, because it wasn't around for many years before that. And that's when we get into some of the recovery things that are coincidences that aren't coincidences, and that came out of nowhere. And it was in the lobby of the freaking Pachanga Casino, and I just won't ever forget it. And so part of it was literally that I had no money left, but it was like, I'm about to embark in this new world, underworld. And I kind of pulled myself somehow out of that, and it was in the middle of the pandemic, so I only had Zoom.
So you would say in that moment in the casino, you had some kind of higher power moment?
I mean, those are the terms I know now.
Okay.
And I have to be honest, I sometimes still feel silly, and I'm sorry to say that because it's such an integral part of recovery, but
it's a part that people struggle with.
And
a lot of people struggle.
And you're looking at her, and that is undeniable, irrefutable evidence of something. That was not me. That was something outside of me that made that turn happen and made me go home instead of God knows where.
Love it. All right, we're going to break there. And then when we come back, we're going to get to the good stuff. We're going to talk about recovery because it's all happy times from here. We'll be back in the Gambling Recovery Lounge with Julia. Welcome back into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. All right, we have heard some amazing stuff tonight from Julia. And I know a lot of it really painful. And as we always talk about is you don't get to the great part of recovery without going through the bottom of the barrel, through all the pain. So we're going to now talk about the recovery part of Julia's journey. So both Alyssa and I were there from the beginning of your journey. So talk about that first meeting you went into. What drove you that night to that particular Zoom meeting?
Well, again, from having been in AA, I knew that was free and that was accessible. A meeting, a GA meeting. I went to my laptop and I Googled GA, and I was kind of surprised that it was not as commonly found. A meeting was not as easy to find like with AA. They're on every corner. And there was nothing physically near me, but there was a Zoom link. And plus it was during the pandemic. So I mean, that's a tough moment because you're looking at that link and you're like, no, tell me I'm not. I am not. Please tell me I'm not this. But I knew I was a gambling addict, and I'm alone in my room, and I live with my mother, but it's sort of like living alone. She's in the front of the house and I'm in my room, and by the way, she has no idea about any of this.
Mm-hmm.
Still?
Well, we'll get to that, but because somehow a mom always knows, but never was there was any interaction about it or anything.
Oh, I know that story well.
Me too.
So I just remember being in my room, and it's pandemic. You're already because I'm sort of in a weird isolated place, and that was my only hope, was that link. That was my only hope. I clicked on the link, and it was a small little Zoom meeting with about 6 or 7 squares. So once again, I have to say, this is not a linear process. It's not like, okay, I'm going to go to GA, and then I start, and then I'm in GA. This is, I click the link, I go to a meeting, and then I go gamble for another week or 2. And then I come back, and I click a link. So it's not like that one meeting. But I remember that night because it's that feeling of where you're facing yourself. And there's no one, it's just you. It's just you and the truth. And that fucking sucks. And I clicked the link. It was about 6 little squares of people, and they were all men. They were all men, but there was one woman. It's really any newcomer that comes into a meeting, I think is like the bravest person. One of the bravest things you can do, because you're kind of saying, here's the worst of me. Hi, I'm Julia, and here's the worst of me. And you're kind of opening up your guts and saying, can I come in? And,
here are my intestines.
Can I play?
Me and my liver come in and hang out.
Well, and I love what you said before. Like, you can't believe you're here. You can't believe this is you. It's like I know, I think I remember for me, it was like my whole life flashed before my eyes, because for so many years, all as I thought I knew how to do was gamble. And now I was coming to a place that was going to tell me I can never do this again. It was like I was losing my entire identity of anything that I knew for 30 years.
You can't fathom that there's any other option but that. There's no other life for us but that. What we're doing right now. This machine, this sports book. You cannot fathom that there's anything else. And then you log on, and then they welcome you, and you're like, why are you being nice to me? I'm a piece of shit. Why are you being nice to me? And they're smiling and they're saying it's going to get better. And then they say, let me read you these 20 questions. And I'm like, huh? Okay. And then when they start that, by question 2 or 3, I lost feeling in my hands. I was like, how are they reading my mind?
You know me so well. Yeah.
Yes.
How do they know I run back to the casino after? How do they know that?
Yeah. How do they know I've sold things to,
finance my gambling?
Yep.
Yeah.
That we're suicidal. We're reading it like it's, hey, it's okay. Are you suicidal? So are we. I'm like, what?
You're in that meeting on August 30th, 2021, because that's sort of your GA date. So what happened that night that you're like, okay, now I'm sticking. I'm not going back again, and this is going to now be my path. Did something happen particularly in that meeting that changed the dynamic for you?
It was being accepted, but also laughing. There was people laughing and making jokes. And there was someone that kept saying to me, we know how you feel and we welcome you. And when you are so broken and so disgusted and you just have such self-loathing and you kind of have nowhere to go. And then to meet other people who are just as imperfect and just as maybe have similar, not just that they were being kind, but they had similar devastating places that they had ended up or lost their self-respect, had lost not just money, but that their soul just like been so shattered. And now they're smiling and making jokes and saying family. And I'm telling you that woman that kept saying family.
Hey, family.
That's what Julia had been looking for since her dad got into that Pontiac and drove away. I had been looking and waiting for someone to say that to me. We accept you. We want you to come back. And it just happened to be a particular recipe that night. It doesn't always mean the first meeting you go to is going to have that recipe.
Or donuts.
But it was
You're hanging on to that.
You were the salt, you were the pepper.
Yeah.
Jason was
can I be the salt?
Oregano. I don't know. Yeah, you can be the salt.
Because I'm a little bitter, so a little salty.
But it was I don't know what was happening that night that put those ingredients together that made me want to come back and finally submit to or surrender to what the AA people were trying to tell me 15 years prior.
I do think there's something to timing, though. And I don't think that, the fact that you were unsuccessful with AA at first was because you couldn't be successful. It was just that you weren't ready. But at this point, you're all these years later. I mean, and even though you ended up being very successful in AA, yeah, I think that it just comes when it's meant to come because you have to really want it. And if you don't, you're just going to go back out and live in that misery. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what I remember, because I still remember that meeting on August 30th, and I remember your square on that Zoom meeting and the smile. You jumped off the screen for me. And at the time, I had probably about 75 days. I think I'm about 75 days ahead of you, right? June 15th. Yeah, that's about right. And I remember thinking to myself as you were starting to talk, oh, please let her be in Los Angeles somewhere, right? Because as we've all seen, particularly on that Zoom meeting, people are far more out of our area than they are in our area. And I was just like, something about you just was magnetic to me. And I was just hoping, oh, please let her be local because there's something really special. And then here we are, right?
Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing. I remember seeing you. I heard you said did your share, and I laughed. I was like, this girl's funny. And I can appreciate a good sense of humor, for sure. And so I just remember going, I hope she's in Los Angeles. But also because, let's be real, women in recovery, with gambling addictions, there are a lot of us, but there aren't a lot of us in recovery. And I think it's because, at least in my opinion, it just feels like a man's world, and it's not that anybody necessarily was like, no, don't come in here, you're a woman. But I just feel like I felt invisible at times. So, yeah, I mean, it's just...
So we notice each other right away, and because it does feel, even though when you're in the casino, there's a whole lot of women, but any of the GA meetings I've been to, there's only been a few, and so we do like right away. Of course, I noticed you anyway because you were very funny and very, very warm, but yeah, we've talked about this too, off kind of behind the scenes, like. Especially if you have any kind of like abuse or trauma history, it's hard to walk into a small, hot room full of men. When you're a woman, if you have any kind of background...
There's a particular smell. Just kidding.
Well,
all the love.
And I love RGA brothers and anyone that might be listening. It's not anything. If you're a woman with any kind of... trauma, you have a trauma background, it's sometimes hard to just be in a small room filled with men, period. Not personal, not,
And that's something I think that they don't necessarily think about or understand.
Yeah, and it's okay, because no one likes to hear that you're a threat or that you might be... that they're not welcoming me, because they did, but the act of walking into an enclosed space can trigger bad things and not make a person feel comfortable.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So there are times that I won't go to that meeting because, but this is before I knew certain people, but in the beginning it was very hard to come sometimes.
So on that note, do you remember when you went to your first in-person meeting after how many days or weeks or a month or whatever?
So I, have been led by certain people in this program that kind of took my hand or took me under their wing. And Eric, you were one of them, encouraging me it was soon after you had been encouraged to go to an in-person. And I think you invited me, encouraged me to join you at a Griffith Park meeting. And it was it was before my 60 days, because I remember racing to get my key tags to that meeting. Mm-hmm. So I know I at least got 2 or 3 key tags. So I think it was around probably right before 60 days, maybe. And you encouraged me to come and experience what that was like, because it was very different than the Zoom. At that point, I would have done anything you said, because you I remember you in that square, and I would just feel so comfortable when at that point I had been going every night to the Burbank, 90 meetings, 90 days. I'd click on every night at 7, and there's, my little security blanket. There you are. And then Eric with his arms folded and staring intently into this camera, no smile, with his eyes sort of blazing into my soul, like this shit is serious. And we tease you, but it's like, but that was a real secure,
You're
image.
Like the guardian,
yeah,
of the.
And so you say, come to Griffith. I'll come to Griffith. I went to Griffith, and I remember that day, and it was cold, and I was like, well, I don't have a chair. I don't have a blanket. I think I sat on the grass. Oh, I did for the first several meetings. I had a blanket. I think I brought a blanket or a shirt. I did. I didn't have as powerful as a first in-person meeting as you. In fact, I was a little nervous because again, there was a lot of men, but I think there was 1 or 2 women at that time. But man, something about being in that park, well, being outside, and if you can't grasp this concept of higher power, and people are talking about higher power and God, and you're like, what? But then you see like, oh, this lovely oak tree, and there's a woodpecker, and the sun is shining, and you're getting all these visual cues of like something bigger. Or
they were always there too. I just, could you see them?
What do you know?
Life
they
is
were always there.
by.
Didn't see a thing.
Right.
And we see it now.
And we do.
I mean,
and it's beautiful. I mean, what gets better than that?
That was another like pivotal transition for my recovery, was getting to the park Sunday morning. At that time it was the Sunday morning meeting at Griffith, being with you in person, people on the Zoom come to life. And then I think you and I, Eric, had, by the way, still feeling completely uncomfortable in my skin, but starting to feel like part of something bigger than me, and starting to feel connected, starting to feel like everything's going to be okay. I think, Eric, you and I went to coffee after a meeting soon after.
Yeah,
and that was a 2 or 3 hour.
Yep.
I could have sat there all day. I think you've said the same.
Sure.
We kind of compared what got us there, who we were. We were paying attention to each other. We were, not. I mean,
out of body
to go. I mean, honestly, to go from being a bullshitting liar, like most superficial exchange with you, that's all I wanted, a superficial exchange to get to my comfort zone, to in-depth, eye to eye. Nothing else around us existed. Our coffees were probably cold or warm, or neither one of us saying, okay, well, it's really nice to see you, but I gotta go. Neither one of us did that. And that kind of, I think, cemented our bond. There's a few words that I used to really made my skin crawl before I got into recovery. One of them was fellowship, because that was from the church, the church where I grew up, and I thought was a bunch of bullshit. Well, in my experience, it was the family breaking apart.
It's a little old-timey.
Well, but the concept, that just means that you're in pain. You want it so badly, but you're not getting it. I mean, for me, that's what it was. Yeah.
That's what it means?
No. Fellowship means coming together, people coming together. A fellowship, like us sitting around this table right now.
I
we're
literally
a fellowship.
have just had a moment.
Oh.
Yeah, don't mind me.
It's okay.
I'll be over here. I'll see myself.
It's totally.
Thank you.
Listen, it is an old timey church word, and I'm saying, I even wrote a song about this years ago because I was like, "Fuck you and your fellowship." Like, it's just the pain of not having it. I wanted it, and so that word used to bug me. Now it doesn't. God shot. God shot. Sitting with Mr. Godshot.
Yes,
here.
That's Eric's nickname, actually.
I hated that term. Because who was God? What are you talking about? The number one thing I would say to anybody that might be thinking about coming to GA is to please open your mind to that. This is not your Judeo-Christian or your Catholic God. Please do not get hung up on that, because that's what happened to me with the AA. I never got over that. Never. And I very stubbornly, and it's sometimes for some of us still hard to hear that word. And then you hear like good orderly direction. You hear other, interpretations of the word. But, to me, it's just a nice one syllable short thing that that means a whole bunch of things.
And then you don't have to explain to somebody else. Like, I just feel like there's those words that just encompass everything you're trying to say without saying it. And God is just easier than saying, a God of my understanding, higher power. Oh, because everyone's like, what is that? Is that, the doorknob could be your higher power. Oh, wait. And then you have to explain that. And it's like, okay, never mind.
Right. You'll figure it, when you figure it out, you'll understand what it is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you, as you've gone through your recovery, Julia, now for 2.5 plus years, what would you say are maybe 2 or 3 of the most important parts of your journey that have kept you in recovery? If you could point to a couple of those things.
There's so many. And I think I feel very lucky that I'm surrounded by, I have these meetings in Los Angeles that people don't have in other parts, Canada or wherever our friends are that don't have any. I found the will to live, period. I had a will to destruct and to destroy myself. I have a will to live, and I have a will to help other people live. I'm in school now to be a therapist. I've met so many amazing people on this GA journey and on the AA journey, but this GA journey in particular that I feel have really helped remind me that I am not a reject. My life isn't in vain, that it can help somebody else who feels that way right now and help them rediscover who they are. That keeps me away from the casino. Being a part of your guys' journey, possibly. Some other people who they're beloved to me. Like, they're not just my fellows. Like, they're such beloved people to me. I want to be in their journeys and I want them in mine. I want to be an aunt to my nieces and I want to be an aunt to my nephews. And I'm mending my relationship with my brothers as best that can go. Able to take care of my mother in her old age. She's never had anyone take care of her in her whole life. So I get to be the one to do that. That's a huge honor. I don't want to waste by going back to the casino and leaving her to die alone. I don't want that. Does that answer the question?
I think that more than answers the question.
So, Julia, as a fellow sister, I know it's sometimes hard for us to believe in ourselves. It's almost like the people around us see something other than what we see. And for me, I see a very talented, very funny, smart, beautiful woman when I look at you. And I sometimes am taken aback when you have that behavior that we all are guilty of having, self-deprecating. No, you can't be talking about me. But guess what? I am talking about you because I see such beauty in you. And I don't know what you were like before you were gambling. I only know who you are now. And even from the first day that you came in, I felt like now when I hear people speak like you did, I'm like, oh, they must be in another program, because I didn't realize, like, I didn't know I could, I didn't know automatically what to do, but some people do. So I was like, wow, she's new, and she's already smarter at this than I am. Like, you just had such really interesting things to say. But what really got me, and which when you started to have an effect on me, is that, to me, you come off as very confident. And sometimes when I hear you tell stories, like you were very raw today about, how you feel or felt and how you're doing and how you're growing now, but just that part of us as women that we tend to, pull back in. I saw such confidence that night, and I saw the vulnerability, which I thought was respectable. Like, I guess when people say these kinds of things to me, I'm always like, no. But I understand because of you that I can actually believe them when they tell me things like that. Because I know that they're probably seeing something that in that moment I can't see myself. And so for that, I want to thank you, because it has had a profound effect on my life. It has changed a lot of things for me, and just my self-esteem and all of that. And I don't think it matters one bit how much time we each have in the program and who has more, who has less. That's not necessarily what brings wisdom. It's people's experiences and people's willingness to talk about them no matter what, and not be afraid, even though probably filled with fear, of doing that. And so by coming on that night to that Zoom meeting and being you, the only Julia I know, thank you, because it helped me. And I don't think I've ever told you that. So now's the time, right? Mm-hmm. I love you, Julia.
I don't know what to say to that.
Well, it's not like I'm going to be like, after a meeting or something, be like, hey, I got something to tell you. Let's step outside, with like everybody, and be like, oh, by the way, always waiting for the best time, the right time.
Wow.
And it's a God shot, because this was the right time.
That was precious. Thank you.
All right, so one final question, Julia, to leave our audience with. Of all the things in recovery that you've had success with and experienced, all these miracles you've talked about, what would be one you would say surprised you the most about your recovery journey that you never saw or thought could come to you?
I never thought that by doing those things that they suggest of you, and that following the program and doing doing the thing, that eventually you not only begin to hate yourself less, you don't feel alone anymore. And I don't mean just because you have people around you. There's no people around you. You don't feel alone, like, existentially anymore. Like, I've always felt that way. I've always felt completely alone until now. I don't know if that makes sense, but that was a surprise, because
absolutely.
Okay, that was a surprise. I thought you just stop gambling and you go back to work and you just have you do these meetings, but internally I'm not suicidal anymore. That was a surprise, not to realize, like, oh my gosh, like, the depth of the depression that I've always had it's not that deep anymore. That's a surprise.
Yeah, I know. One of the things I love that we hear in recovery is the opposite of addiction is connection. And that kind of reminds me of what you were just talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's connecting to you, people that you've always been afraid of, but it's also connecting to that other thing that we can't quite put our finger on. That's good old HP. It never in a million years would I have thought that I'd come to believe.
Never in a million years did I think you would come to believe either. That's what's so interesting about your story, too, is that you were so not interested in trying to even have a perspective, to hear another perspective on the higher power, or the concept of the higher power. And I think that, maybe for a lot of people that is the case, and until that miracle happens, or with the first time that you realize, I think all of these things were in existence. We were not in existence. So now that we're breathing, and we have, color in our face, and our hearts beating again, that we're starting to see all these things. But like the first moment that you've noticed that and realized that on a bigger level, that's when like all of a sudden the whole resistance against the HP begins. And miracles do happen, because that is a miracle that you are now on the other side.
Well, Julia, thank you so much for joining us tonight in the Gambling Recovery Lounge.
Thank you.
As we said at the beginning, the first guest we knew absolutely was going to be you. And I think everything that happened tonight and all the things that you gave to the audience, that just reinforced that this was the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
We made a lot of wrong decisions as addicts. Tonight, I think we've redeemed ourselves.
I agree. I agree 100%. Wow, look at us.
We're getting a little smarter.
Knuckles.
Yes. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for experience number 4 in the Gambling Recovery Lounge. Please come back in about a week, and we will have experience number 5. And our next guest is going to be our great friend and brother, James. So we're looking forward to doing that in about a week. So please come back and join us in the Gambling Recovery Lounge.